Welcome back to the Let's Get Scared channel where we bring you spine-chilling stories. Today, we'll take you on a journey into the realm of Randaunatica, the app that promises adventure, but may lead you down a dark path. We look at the implications of utilizing technology to uncover secrets and summon the otherworldly. Prepare to be terrified as we go into the unknown. Pay close attention, but be warned. You might not want to glance over your shoulder afterwards. I absolutely love mysteries of any kind. Whether it's a Sherlock Holmes or Nancy Drew mystery, or puzzles and riddles, it doesn't matter, I'm game. I love the thrill of trying to figure out the solutions to mysteries. So when my son, Ben, told me about the Randaunatica app, I was interested. It also looked like a fantastic opportunity for father and son to bond. Ben and I decided to go randonauting on a Saturday. The app was straightforward to use. I opened it on my phone after downloading it. I had to concentrate on an intention while the Randaunatica generated a random location. "Let's hunt for something weird," I said excitedly, closing my eyes briefly to concentrate. Randaunatica generated a location for us to explore in a matter of seconds. I looked at the map on the app, which showed a route extending into the woods behind our property line, and I was ecstatic. "I guess we don't need a car for this one," my son said, and I nodded. We set off on the route right away. We discovered several intriguing clues along the way. There was an ankh symbol cut into a rock. One of the tree's trunks had the same symbol. But we weren't content, so we went farther into the woods. I was utterly consumed by the hunt. But then something strange happened. We began to discover other weird stuff. One interesting find was a plastic bottle with a folded piece of paper inside it. When we took the paper out, the same ankh symbol was shown with a strange message that said, "The shadows are watching. The key is in plain sight." Ooh, spooky, I chuckled. Ben suggested that we stop exploring the woods, change our intention and go explore another site. "Don't you want to find out what the key is?" I asked my son. After a moment he was silent, then said reluctantly, Okay. We can keep looking for further clues." As we continued on the trail, discussing Ben's past Randaunatica adventures, we began to observe unusual things happening around us. We thought we heard our names being called, and the trees rustled ominously, as if they were warning us of something. I felt like someone was watching and thought I heard footsteps behind us, but when I looked around, no one was there. When we came to the end of the trail we saw a wooden cabin in a clearing. It appeared to have been abandoned for years, with vines climbing up the walls and boarded up windows. "I had no idea there was a cabin here," I said. "I think there's someone inside," Ben remarked. He stepped up to the cabin's porch and called out to anybody who might have been there. It sounded like someone was moving about in the cabin. I warned Ben to be cautious since it might be a wild animal. But then Ben called out to me, saying there was another message. As I approached Ben, I spotted a note etched on the porch that said, "Go inside. The truth is waiting for you." We glanced at each other. "Dad, this is becoming creepy. I think we should just leave," Ben said. But I was curious. And I wasn't about to let all that walking go to waste. So I took a big breath and pushed open the door. Inside, the cabin was musty and barely visible. There were cobwebs clinging to the ceiling and old furniture strewn around. A trunk stood in the middle of the room. We approached the trunk with caution and a growing sense of discomfort in our stomachs. As I lifted the lid, we heard a creaking sound and the door slammed shut behind us. We swung around and hurried to open the door. But it would not budge. Then we heard a chilly, hollow voice say, "Welcome to my game." "I'm terrified, Dad," said Ben. I attempted to comfort him and pretended to be calm as best as I could. I actually felt terrified as well. I returned to the trunk and found a single sheet of paper inside. It had a riddle on it. With dread, I understood that the clues we'd been following all along had led us here, to this point, where we were stuck in a scary cabin with no way out. "We have to solve the riddle," I told Ben. It took us hours, my mind racing as we sought to piece together the clues. When we had the answer, the door of the cabin cracked open. We staggered outside, gasping for air. The sun was setting. It had been a terrifying day. We were still processing all that had transpired when we heard a twig snap behind the cabin. A person stood among the trees near the cabin. It was a tall gaunt man dressed in dark, his eyes glowing in the dim light. He took a step forward. His lips curled into a nasty smirk. "You did well," he said sarcastically, then added. "Keep in mind that there's always another mystery to solve." He then vanished into the night. We stood frozen for some time, then rushed back home. Despite deleting the Randaunatica app from my phone, I couldn't escape the impression that someone was still watching me, waiting for me to fall back into their trap. Over the next few weeks, I tried to forget about my terrifying experience with the Randaunatica app. I was a little paranoid. Everywhere I went, I felt like someone was following me, and every time my phone beeped, my heart skipped a beat. I was also preoccupied with Ben's whereabouts, needing to know where he was at all times. As I was walking home from work one day, I discovered an ankh symbol etched into the sidewalk with an address inscribed next to it. It was the same symbol I had seen during the Randaunatica adventure. My heart began to pound as I realized I was being lured back into the game. I got into my car and had Google Maps guide me to the address. I soon arrived to a warehouse on the outskirts of town. I knew I shouldn't have gone there. But something inside me compelled me to do so. I noticed that the door of the warehouse was slightly ajar. I pushed it open and entered. The warehouse was dark and dusty on the inside. As I followed the sound of footsteps echoing through the space, my heart raced. I eventually arrived at a room with a table in the middle. There was a piece of paper on the table. As I suspected, there was another riddle scribbled on it. I knew it was wrong, yet I began to solve the puzzle. The room began to spin as I did so, and I felt like I was losing control. The floor suddenly gave way, and I fell into a dark hole. I realized I wasn't alone until I hit the ground. There were others there with me, adults and teenagers. We were trapped in the darkness, with no way out. The time we spent locked up in the dungeon felt like months. We were imprisoned in the dark, with little food and water. Most puzzling of all is that we didn't understand why. I think that I was gradually losing my mind. I'm not sure how long we were down there, but I remember feeling like I was about to die when the door suddenly opened and the FBI rescue team busted in. And just like that, we're free again. I never found out who intended to harm us through the Randaunatica app or why they played such a bizarre game. But one thing was certain. I will never be the same again. The experience had changed me, leaving me tormented by memories, and I knew I'd never completely be able to escape the shadows that seemed to follow me wherever I went. It was Sunday, and I was sleeping in. The buzzing of my phone on my nightstand shocked me awake. I groggily reached for it and found a message from my friend Elijah. He was inviting me to join Todd, Logan, and himself on an adventure with the Randaunatica app. The app has recently become extremely popular. I was doubtful about what we normally find. I believe it is akin to pareidolia in that the interpretation of clues is subjective and we can make anything appear to be related to our intentions. But my friends were usually up for something crazy and I didn't want to be left out. I quickly dressed and met my buddies at our usual meeting spot, a tiny park near Logan's house. They were already discussing where the app had led them the night before, specifically the spooky abandoned house they had discovered. I joined in the conversation, wondering what this app could truly do. "Don't be a downer," Todd said. "Sometimes we find real things," he added. "Let's take my car and go exploring." We started the app in Todd's car. Our intention was death. Finally, a location appeared on the app screen. It was a spot I was unfamiliar with, only a few miles away. But the app promised it was a location that would lead us to something related to death, so we eagerly set out to investigate. We eventually arrived at our destination. It was an old, deteriorating amusement park, long abandoned and forgotten. We parked the car and stepped out, eager to explore it. "Well, it's a dead amusement park." I smirked. "Maybe we'll come across a dead animal," Logan suggested, adding. "Or a grave." "A grave?" Elijah chuckled. "Why would there be a grave in an amusement park, stupid?" We noticed strange things at the park. The rides appeared to have been abandoned in the middle of their operation. The cotton candy machine was still spinning, and the clowns in the funhouse appeared to about to jump at us. The strangest thing we witnessed was a man. He was dressed in a long black coat, black slacks, had dark glasses on, and carried a briefcase. We attempted to approach him, but he disappeared before we could get too close. We kept investigating, but it wasn't long before we came across a crime scene. There was a bloodied man on the ground. He looked dead. We turned to leave, terrified, when we heard footsteps behind us. We turned around to see the man in black standing nearby. He held a gun pointing it our way. We realized we were in trouble. We ran as fast as we could out of the park. But the park was a maze, and we quickly became lost. We could hear the man approaching, his footsteps echoing through the desolate park. We eventually saw a way out. We ran through the gate and into the woods, putting as much distance as we could between ourselves and the man. We made it back to the car and sped away, our pulses racing with panic. We didn't stop until we were completely exhausted. But even now, weeks later, I can't shake the nagging feeling of unease. I can't help but wonder what transpired in that abandoned amusement park and what type of peril we nearly avoided. I know I'll never be the same after that encounter. I will never look at the Randaunatica app the same way again. I'd always been drawn to the supernatural. The thought of an unseen realm full of ghosts and spirits has long piqued my interest. I'd heard about the Randaunatica app and how individuals had strange, unexplainable, even dangerous encounters because of it. I didn't believe anyone used it to communicate with the invisible world, such as spirits. So, I figured I'd be the first to try. I went down to the local cemetery, downloaded the app, and launched it. I declared my intention aloud, asking to communicate with a ghost via the app. I asked to be provided clues that I might piece together to form a message from the spirit. I closed my eyes and focused on my intention as instructed. Soon, a red dot emerged on the app's map. I was pleasantly surprised that the generated location was inside the cemetery. Sweet. Maybe there's something to this app after all, I thought. I began looking for the location marked on the map. My heart was racing. I was so excited, hoping to experience something truly supernatural. The cemetery was quite old. It was a creepy sight, full of old gravestones and overgrown bushes. It was still and quiet. The only sound was the crunch of gravel beneath my feet. I took out my digital voice recorder, hoping to capture some evidence of paranormal activity. I didn't have to wait for long. I heard rustling in the neighboring bushes. I looked up but saw nothing. I dismissed it as a squirrel or raccoon. But then I heard it again. It sounded closer this time. I realized I wasn't alone in the cemetery. A shiver ran down my spine. I wanted to leave, but I couldn't. Some invisible force was holding me in place and prevented me from fleeing. Then, a strange-looking creature appeared from the shadows. Its eyes were flashing a horrible green. The being was tall and skinny. It had long, spindly fingers and a mouth full of sharp fangs. I stood frozen in place. Fear overwhelmed me. The figure approached me, its breath scorching and fetid. It spoke, but I didn't understand anything it said. Whatever it was saying had a sinister tone to it, causing me to feel chills. I closed my eyes and braced for the worst. But nothing happened. The creature had just vanished, and the cemetery was once again silent. I quickly stumbled out of the cemetery. My heart was racing and I felt terrified. I knew what I had been through was genuine. The supernatural existed, and the Randaunatica app had guided me directly to it. To this day no one believes me when I share this story. They claim it was all in my head or that I had been watching too many horror movies. But I know the truth. I had witnessed something inexplicable. And I know I would never be the same again. Thank you for your time. We hope you enjoyed these 3 eerie Randaunatica stories. Remember that while technology allows us to explore and discover new things, we must always be cautious of what we discover. Who knows what lurks in the shadows, waiting for us to discover it. Sleep tight, but keep one eye open. Until next time. Please like, share, and subscribe. Don't forget to hit the bell button so you don't miss any of our content. Thank you.